Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to this evening's episode where I've got Rachel Vaughan coming back and having a chat with me. It's been a couple of years, Rachel, but yeah, thank you for coming back on.
It's a pleasure to be here, Julia, as always. Love your work.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot, not I think, I know there's been so much that has changed since the last time we spoke. I know that we've been in contact in other mediums and forms, but just publicly on this channel where people saw your interview, we talked about your, I guess your past and how you've healed yourself, and now to see what the work that you're doing, which is why I've wanted to get you on, because I've myself went through your course in January, and I just like, you are really moving mountains with this. There's a big shift that is potential to occur with the more people that can come aboard, which we'll go into the details of it. But talk a little bit about your course maybe, and what's been happening for you.
All right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people that watch your program would know from our last interview that I came out about my allegations against my father, and I was brought up in a satanic cult. And I've been whistleblowing about that for the last 18 years. In the last couple of years, I've put out so much evidence of my abuse, photographic evidence, and a lot of other evidence, especially about the tunnels that I was trafficked through. So I got to a point where I got my justice.
Yeah.
And then I was actually able to be brave enough to talk about the psychic work that I do, and that has funded my ability to talk about these things publicly, but still have a living in the background because we've all got to have a roof over our heads. And I kept that quiet for a long time because I know that if you talk about psychic ability, people discredit you immediately. And I needed to get my evidence out first. I didn't really realize that at the time, but that's what I was doing. And I felt this push as well, incredible push. I've had many near-death experiences. I've had many spiritual experiences, and through those processes as a child, I managed to foster this beautiful relationship with a group of spirit guides that have been protecting me and helping me through all of that. And for those who say, oh, they didn't protect you, well, there are some things that if you're going to learn something incredible from an experience, you don't necessarily get protected from it. The protection that I've got is that I'm actually still alive. And I know of, and I witnessed many that didn't have that protection. So now my mission, so to speak, on a spiritual level, is to share what I've been photographing in the last 10 years, which is the fact that ley lines are visible. I've been able to see them and photograph them for the last 10 years at least. I was told when I first moved to the south coast of South Australia that they are visible. And I remember a friend saying, oh, her friend could see them and they were pink. And I remember thinking, oh, I'd love to see that. That'd be amazing. And lo and behold, they've shown themselves to me. I don't see them as pink. I did have one vision of them being pink, but all the rest of the time, they belie themselves by the fact that plants and trees don't like to grow within them. So they're most obvious out in nature, especially areas of endemic scrub.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching that in my course. So you will see these perfect circles in nature where trees grow around them, and the boughs of the trees and the branches all just avoid, and you get this perfect tunnel through nature. Now, these are the song lines that the original Australians speak of. They do have a different frequency. So I think both the original Australians can hear them, and also I think they sing within them. And part of the reason why I think they might do that, although I haven't had confirmation, I would make an assumption that it's to protect themselves. When you walk within a ley line, and the interesting thing is a lot of roads, a lot of streets were once ley lines. And I'll be talking about Alfred Watkins' work in a minute, who wrote a book called The Old Straight Track. I think they sing within the lines to protect themselves, to create a harmonic frequency. That means that the entities that exist within the ley lines cannot attach or attack. So the ley lines are fifth dimensional frequency on a third dimensional plane, which is the earth. I sort of decided that I wanted to share some of my psychic information. A friend of mine, Max Lowen, said, why don't you do a psychic development course? It was like, whoa, why didn't I think of that before?
I
started, gotta love Max. I've got to love Max. She's an amazing woman, also very psychic herself. And so I started to put together, I'd already written a book. So I had the basis of a course already in a book. And so I put together what I wanted to teach, taught Max and her friends first on the Unbroken team, and then just started to share it. It took me another 7 months to get the courage up to do it. And then I did it and started in July last year. And in that course, I teach certain techniques like there's a relaxed vision technique, which the father of Kirlian photography, Walter Kilner, teaches or taught. So Kirlian photography is photography of the soul, of the aura. And so Kirlian photography is amazing. If you want to go and get your aura picture taken, you'll see different chakra influences, and the auric field has all these different colors in it. It's quite amazing. Also, if you cut a leaf and take a photograph of it, the aura of the leaf remains intact, even with half that leaf removed. So that's something I also show in the course. So this is all proof that the aura exists.
Mm-hmm.
One aspect of what Walter Kilner teaches is if you use a technique called relaxed vision, where you'll let your eyes go out of focus. It's actually quite beneficial for people who wear glasses to take them off if they want to use relaxed vision, because you cannot focus as easily. You'll see auras around people more clearly. You will also be able to pick up on the ley lines more clearly. So one of the interesting things was when I first started photographing these ley lines in nature, I would go home. I just love photography. I'd go home with my photographs and be like Christmas, and I'd be happy, like an exciting event. And I'd look at all my photographs, and I'd look for interesting things in them. And then I would walk away from the computer and go and do something. And as I'd come back, I would notice, hang on, something's in the center of that photograph. It looks like a circle. Well, why would there be a circle? And I thought, there's something wrong with my camera.
Right.
And then I started to notice that every time I took a photo in that spot, these circles would appear, and then it just grew from there. So again, if you're standing in the cross section of a tunnel of energy, it will appear as a circle in front of you. If you stand on the side of it, you won't see it. Mm-hmm. So it's quite subtle. And I've got some tiles to share today, sort of just to explain some of what that looks like, so people can learn themselves. I teach a lot of other stuff in the course as well about energetic protection, which is very important, especially now. How to read auras and what those auric frequencies mean for vocations, what your soul purpose is for being here, just basic stuff like that, and also how to pick up on all the elementals and otherworldly entities that we coexist with here in the third dimension, because we are not alone. There's a lot of other entities here with us.
Oh, to think, it's what I find really almost amuses me a lot, where people sort of think that we're the only things that exist on this planet. It's almost like this, I don't know. It's like, how big is this world, this galaxy, this universe? There's no way that there's definitely more than what we just see in the physical realm. And I actually speak out about that in regards to people that are really stuck in that only matter exists is actually a left brain imbalance, because it's a very logical, analytical form of thinking. And when you've got that imbalance, you don't see a holistic view where energy exists. And this mouse there, yes, it feels like it's solid, but it's actually a natural law principle of vibration, that nothing is actually at rest. Everything is moving. So you can zoom into the microscopic level and everything is moving. Nothing is actually really solid. So it's that, and science has proved that finally,
Yes.
but it's like a lot of people are still stuck in that left brain, there is nothing beyond the physical. And that's where, when people try to discredit or, say, oh, psychic, or like look into the CIA documents, they do remote viewing, there's all this stuff. Like, it's just people don't want to, I think, because they're afraid sometimes as well. I find that, if they do say that, sort of come to a thing where they let go of that matter logical perspective, then that's your whole world opens up after that. And that's a scary thing for people sometimes too, I find. So, but comes down to knowing yourself and knowing how you work. Like, how I've been really sort of focusing on this myself. Like, people don't want to know themselves almost as well. Like, and if you if you do have a brain imbalance, then you are easily manipulated as well. So these things I want to point out, because when you're coming into, a place of willing to learn, it's kind of like you've got to be at that balance where you have a good level of discernment, but at the same time you're ready to accept new information that you might not have heard of. Like when I heard about your ley lines straight away for me, because I've also been quite open to the metaphysical world and the psychic, the different realms. Like that to me was straight away. I knew that that was something that I needed to learn, but other people might have a more, might find that more challenging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's good things to point out for people that might be listening to this that have never heard of this before and might just dismiss it off as, you know, the things that they can't see. But like I can feel ley lines, you know,
Yeah.
when I'm in them more than I can see them. I feel them, and it's like it's, there was a lady actually in the course in January where she said she was in her house and she could hear song music. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes,
That
yes.
blew my mind. I was like,
And if you look at it from that point of view, it is, so the fifth dimension is the repository of the Akashic record, which is like a database with all events, actions, thoughts, everything that's occurred from living entities on Earth. So that's what those ley lines are. They sing with all of this information. It's a frequency of information. So people who are psychic, who want to tap into that to use it for whatever reason, it's a really good way to tap in. So if you go into those spaces and meditate, it's a great idea. But you've also got to keep in mind you do need energetic protection, because again, so that those corridors of energy are, there are literally corridors with doors to all the different dimensions coming off those corridors. That's, we come into physical existence traveling a ley line, and we go out through a ley line. So those doorways are there. So you've got to be careful, because the doorways go to either end of the spectrum as far as, you know, dark doorways and light doorways as well. Yeah.
yeah. And so you've got to be, yeah, like you said, be mindful about what you're, because these ley lines have been used also, like you know, what I've learned from your course is
Yeah.
that, you know, they are used to hurt the earth, Mother Earth, and she is a living being. And um so when it comes to the ley lines, what I found really interesting is when you spoke about the dragon lines as well. Are they I think I know some of the answers, but I'm just going to ask you anyway, just for the sake of people that are watching. Can you talk a little bit about the dragon lines and their intensity, like with what, like different types of ley lines, because
Okay.
that
So
I find that important.
So the ones that I have photographed, I've seen a range of different sizes, but the majority of the ones that I've come across are roughly about 2 to 3 meters across in diameter when I'm walking in nature. And just so people know, also the smaller ones hover just above the ground. So you'll get some ground covers and some grasses that grow in the lanes, but you won't get as many trees and plants. Some trees and plants do grow in there, and that's actually a sign, because they are wizened and uncomfortable and all over the place. And that's a really good marker for a ley. And you'll see that the tree will actually literally put its bow around it to try and avoid it. It's quite incredible. With the dragon lines, these are the largest ley lines on the earth. And where they cross are the chakra points of the earth. But that's only, so a lot of those crossings happen over the ocean, but where they happen on land, they're considered the chakra points. And we have one of those chakra points at Uluru in Australia, which is the centre of Australia. So the dragon lines, up until 2017, there were 3 pairs that were known of. 2017, another one appeared in 2018, and another in 2019. So suddenly there's this massive influx of powerful energy on the earth. Now, this is all coinciding with the frequency of the earth going up, and those at the 1% at the top pushing down. And what happened in 2019, 2020, everything went insane. So I think, and this is the thing, these ley lines have been co-opted, they've been abused by satanic forces for millennia, right back into the pagan era, with these sacrificial rituals of animals and people. And if you look at the Old Testament, it's all about every Saturday you've got to kill something and you've got to burn it in a specific spot. I mean, what the hell? So you know, the church is not outside of those references as well. So you've got people doing these terrible things in the ley lines to program her for death and misery, and for, you know, to, I think that these entities or these people with these attachments are trying to destroy the earth and trying to turn it into a big black dead rock.
Yeah.
That's what
Or
I think is
just,
going on.
or if you look at the Vatican, you know, like Max and a few other survivors that I know of, speak about what's actually happening underground, and it's becoming common knowledge, but even the Vatican is on a ley line. And you can see that with the pictures that have been taken, and you show that, I think in your course.
I do show that in my course, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a really good example of one of the really massive portal spaces. So, sorry, your question asked me what are the different sizes. They do come in a whole range of sizes, the ley lines, the dragons being the largest. Where they cross, you get these portal spaces. So you've got a crossing of powerful leys at the Vatican, and you can see in the layout of the way that that has been built, there's a big circular courtyard. There's a big obelisk in the middle with a copper top to it, focusing energy of all the people who go in and worship. So that's an energy focus, and that's being sent somewhere dark. Sorry to those people who are, Catholics. And you can actually see in the courtyard these markings of where the leys actually cross. You can see it's marked out in white lines. It's so painfully obvious. It's also right next to a river, rather a large river. So that again heightens and magnifies that energy in that space. Now, what people like Max and many other survivors that I know have talked about, because it's such a massive portal, part of that portal goes underground. Most of these portals are above ground, the ones that I photographed and I'm aware of, but the bigger they get, the further underneath the ground they actually go. And that's where you get these sub-levels of the Vatican where these rituals occur. And I know so many credible survivors that have told me about that. I have no doubt that it occurs.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's heartbreaking, but on the positive side is that we can do the opposite and heal as well, which is why
100%.
this education that you're presenting to people is so important. And I think there's a lot of people around the world that are really, excited about it.
Yeah.
You said that, well, you didn't actually say it, but I know that you went to Uluru.
Yes, I did.
How
Yeah.
did it feel being on a
So that
dragon
was
line?
in 2000. And I remember sitting there with my my partner at the time, looking at the rock. All these people were going up and coming down, and he was telling me he didn't want to go up because he was being thoughtful towards the original Australians who don't like the rock to be walked on. And I was very conscious of that as well. But I felt like I had to go up there, but I was terrified, and I could not. I was someone at that time. I was surfing on my own out the back. I would go all the way out the back on my own when there was nobody else in the water. I didn't care. But I couldn't get up this rock for a good hour. I sat there like an idiot until some little old lady came down, and I thought, "Oh, you idiot, you've got to get up there. What are you doing?" So I did. I did eventually go up there. My partner stayed in his car. When I got to the top, there were about 20 other people there. Not a word was spoken. The silence was palpable. There was not a bird sound. There was nothing. There was no sound. It was so incredibly not eerie. It was beautiful, but it was profound. I'll never forget it. And I just remember thinking, I'm just so glad that I came up here. This is so important. And I didn't know anything about dragon lines or ley lines at that point. Nothing at all. I had a series of incredibly profound experiences when I was living with that partner, which I also talk about in the course, and I'll just mention this because this is quite significant. So where you have ley lines, you have things that are called mark trees. And again, as I said, the trees will mark the ley line by avoiding it, making it really obvious. A gentleman called Alfred Watkins wrote a book in 1925 called The Old Straight Road, which I just mentioned earlier. He talks about mark trees, he talks about mark stones. There's all these markers. Churches are built on the crossing of ley lines. They're actually built on the old Roman pagan sacrificial spaces, and they would actually use the sacrificial rocks as part of the foundation for the church. So while I was living at that particular property with my ex at Langhorne Creek on the Bremer River, his dog one day, who was not a dog, she was a soul of exceptional intelligence and wisdom, and probably way more intelligent and wiser than I was at that point. She insisted taking me down to the river that day. I didn't take her, but she was just like, "You've got to come with me." It's like, okay, also I'll come. So she took me down to the river, and the river bed was dry at that time. And we walked along for a while, and then she pointed. And as an Alsatian, she wouldn't normally point, but she did this time. And she was actually looking up. And so I followed her gaze. And her behavior was unusual that day. I knew something was going on because she had shown me other things before that were just amazing. And I looked up, and there was this massive face, humanoid, in the tree. There are very big trees along the Bremer River, huge in that particular location. And this tree this face was engaged with me, and it was the mouth was moving. It sounds really creepy, but it was incredibly beautiful and profound. I couldn't understand what was being said. I just knew I had just had one of the most amazing, profound spiritual experiences of my life. When I finally looked down to look at the dog, she was laughing. Her tongue was lolling. She was excited, and she'd show me what she needed to show me. And she went back. I was like, okay,
Wow.
we're done. Just beautiful. So there are entities within the ley lines that want to be shown. Now, a lot of the ley lines do follow rivers. I wasn't aware of ley lines at that point, and I wasn't aware of why I had that experience and why that was so profound. But that's in the same year that I went to Uluru. So I think maybe there was an activation that going up and being within the dragon lines, perhaps there was a download, and maybe that was part of why I have to be here now to do this sort of work and to share this information. So, you know, it's a pretty interesting process. So I share in the course some of the photographs that I've taken over the years of these entities that will show themselves to me. And when it happens, I now know to look for the layers in the area or the portals in the area, because they are literally pointing them out. I've even had the experience, my totem bird is the willy wagtail, where I would go to a place that I've been to, this happened to me recently, go to a place that I've been to many, many times. And out of nowhere, a willy wagtail will just get my attention, or a bird or an animal. This particular occasion, a willy wagtail did this in September of last year, and it went nuts. I mean, they're nuts anyway, but it was coming at me and then flying over. And I had something very similar again just recently with another kind of fantail, a similar bird, almost landed on my head in a natural forest. I had my friend Alex with me, and she witnessed it, and we were in a really powerful portal in that spot as well. So these birds will show these things to you too. But then when the willy wagtail was freaking out recently, I went and looked over and found a tree that I'd gone past that tree I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
And when I took the photographs home, I couldn't see it at the time, but then I noticed it's a massive portal right there, and there was a big face in that tree as well, but actually in the bark. Just incredible experiences. So if you see faces in nature, put your eyes into relaxed vision, see if you can see a circle in that spot. Take photographs in very many different angles and see afterwards if you can see if there's anything there. And I'll show some screen grabs in a minute. Sometimes you can only see them when it's in a thumbnail. It'll really stand out, but when it's a big picture, you won't necessarily see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would love to show some of those screen grabs that you have. But before we do that, I just want to really, what I find so fascinating is how when you've sort of shared how nature wants us to see these ley lines and these portals, because she's communicating to us all the time. And so what does that tell me? Like I always try to go back to natural law principles, right? And how do I apply them in my life? Because my goal is to align myself to what is truth and what is right, and do no harm, right? And it's actually the natural law principle of correspondence is as above, so below. So when we look at the ley lines, you know, of Mother Earth, it's like, I think about the ley lines and these portals, and I think about our energetic system and the meridians that we have in our bodies. And it's just like, we're exactly one, we're, we are at one with her. And so it's a really powerful observation and thing to learn and learn about, because then, well, if we hurt her, as in Mother Earth, then it's going to actually impact on a bigger scale. Because if we hurt ourselves, like with body piercings, for example, or because it does hurt the body,
It does.
you
Yeah.
know, and you know, I used to have a lot of piercings when I was younger, taking them
Okay.
all out, and because I just knew that I was hurting myself, and I think my body healed a lot through that process.
Yes.
But it's just something to think about, because, you know, natural law is, you know,
It
these are,
includes the chakras. It actually causes a disruption in that energy frequency. So I also had piercings. I had an eyebrow ring, a nose ring, and a lip ring, belly button ring. I took them all out also, because someone explained to me with the belly button ring, especially, that I'm shutting off the energy in that area. But with the lip ring, that was all part of my trauma technique to keep me quiet. My father used to tell me to lock my lips with a key. And when a psychic saw me with the lip ring, she said, "What have you got a lock on your lip for?" And it's like, oh,
Wow.
what? Seriously? How? I
Yeah.
knew I had that memory. I already had the memory, but why hadn't I made the correlation?
Mm.
So yeah, that came out that day. Yeah, so you're right, that it does include it. So what happens with the rituals that they do in these spaces? So just like a person who's been traumatized, if you rape somebody, they will have major problems with that chakra of the part of the body. The sacral chakra and the base chakras will be disrupted, and they will need a lot of clearing. Same thing with the earth. If you go into the sacral chakra, which is supposedly the Uluru, and will pee in a pound, that whole area in Australia is considered to be the sacral chakra, and it depends on which link you look up, because some people say it's in a different area. I look at a big orange rock. I follow what Robert Jameson's writes in his Bali to Bairnsdale alignment. There are so many factors in Australia that indicate and look like a human reproductive system, a female reproductive system, that to me, that's the sacral chakra. And it also explains, with Adelaide being the vagina, why Adelaide is so, this is where I was grew up, so full of rape and child abuse, and that is why it's focused there.
Interesting.
If you do those terrible things in those spaces, you will traumatize and make it impossible for the earth to be healthy, not just in that area, but worldwide. Because all of these lines are all connected, just like the meridians of the body.
Do you want to show some pictures?
I would love to show some pictures. Beautiful. All right, so here we go. All right, so I will start. Oh, no, I need to do this. All right, so I just wanted to just quote this amazing man, Alfred Watkins, that I've already mentioned before, who wrote The Old Straight Track, and it was published in 1925. Now, this little piece of information wasn't shared in the book. I think he was afraid to share this back in those days. But basically, what happened was he was out on a sunny afternoon in 1921, riding his horse along the rolling hills surrounding the hamlet of Blackwoodine, and he had an astonishing revelation while looking out over the landscape, which he later described as being like a flood of ancestral memory. And I think that is really important to focus on. This flood of ancestral memory, I know that that's what I was getting when I was seeing the layers in the photographs. It was just like, why isn't anybody else sharing this? And I remember looking for links and I couldn't find anything of anybody really who talked about how they are visible. I'd read a lot about dowsing. There's heaps of references to dowsing, using dowsing rods to find them, but nothing about being able to see them visually. And it wasn't until later when I connected with people who knew original Australians or were connected to original Australians who said, yeah, they can, the original Australians can see them too. They call them song lines and dream lines. So with Alfred Watkins, it suddenly dawned on him when he saw this network of lines, that they were like glowing wires all over the surface of the county. So he noted that these grid-like markings ran in perfectly straight paths, crisscrossing at certain locations he called terminal points, and I like to call them portals, which usually coincided with sites such as beacons, mounds, holy wells, natural springs considered sacred, churches, and ruins. What he saw on that day inspired him to write his ideas down and create a theory which captured the imagination of a nation and later became the subject of much debate. And it really has been an enormous amount of debate around this. There is a whole science called geomancy around dowsing for lays. And yet a lot of the scientific community just refuses to even acknowledge that ley lines exist. It's a bit like, you know, people who refuse to acknowledge that the soul exists, which is ridiculous. It's just, you know, it's a bit sad.
Has to tell you something really funny. I really sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
I work with like blokey blokes, and they had dowsing rods, like they're made out of metal, to find the water, to confirm where the water was before they dug. And I was like, what are these guys doing? How do they know about this? I just found it so like this information is known, but people still sort of make fun of it sometimes. But they were like, oh my God, it's actually working. They were able to find where the water was. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to point that out because it's like
it's a whole science.
Yeah,
it's
it
a
is
whole
a science.
So some of the tiles that I want to show today are mostly of Bora rings in Australia. So Bora rings are ceremonial spaces of original Australians, and they are all over the country. And many of them are protected, thank God, but not all of them. And, you know, I've had people in the course, or one particular person in the course who actually lived right next door to one, had quite a few interesting experiences in the home next to one of these Bora rings, because again, the Bora ring itself, it's a marking out of the portal space of crossings of, you know, significant ley lines or many lays all crossing in the same spot. Sometimes they're quite small, but there's a whole series of them all coming into the one space. So again, where these ley lines cross, they create spherical domes of energy or spaces of energy. The larger they are, they create a dome like at the Vatican that goes underground as well. So you've still got a big sphere of energy, but it's like a dome on top of energy. There's other areas like the Oracle of Delphi. The Washington Monument's also got a circle. There's so many spaces. If you see massive circular plinths on the ground, considering how difficult it is to make anything circular out of masonry, then you've probably got a portal space. There's actually a spot called Mount Macedon. There's a big cross on Mount Macedon in Victoria that I've learnt recently is also a hub for satanic abuse. And that's on a big circular plinth, and there are ley lines, significantly large ley lines moving into that space. This is an example of a Bora ring. Now, it's not very clear, and these are a series of very small lays feeding in. So I haven't marked them, but I'm marking some of the other ones that you'll see in these tiles. There's one here that's basically the lays belie themselves by the frequency, the light. So light and sound can create light. So this is something that Rory Duff talks about in his handbook on ley lines and energy vortexes. Fascinating book. So Nikola Tesla knew this. His huge tower, I can't remember the place where it was called. It's got a really weird name. It's got a W in it.
I know
That
what
was
you're
a
talking about.
crossing of major ley lines. So Tesla knew what he was doing. He also had access to the Akashic record. So this is Nikola Tesla. Okay, there's another little one here. So this is just, you know, where they've marked it out. And what you'll see in these spaces is where the ley lines cross, these big portal spaces, nothing will grow there. So if you see a series of ley lines and you're standing in an open space, you're most likely to be in the portal itself. So you'll see little bits, tufts of grass and things, but in the portal spaces, it's very rare to actually have any plant growth. This is another one in the desert. Again, there's a ley coming in here. There's another one over here. These aren't obvious. I haven't marked them. There's another one over here. So there's a whole series in the background. I just wanted to show these two pictures because you can see where the original Australians have put the stones out to mark the spot. And this is something you will see worldwide where these portal spaces are. They get marked with rocks. So the people with the Indigenous people in that area or others will put the rocks down to say, hey, here's a ley line, because some people can see them and some people cannot. Some people can feel them and some people cannot. So this is a Bora ring as well. And so this one I have marked. So what I'll do is I'll keep going backwards and forwards just to help people to see what I'm seeing. So if you look at this and let your eyes go out of focus, you will notice there is a circle. Now, it's quite subtle in this photograph. Some of these other ones I'm going to show is really quite obvious. So I'll mark it and I'll just keep going backwards and forwards a couple of times. I've actually got, there's a photograph from another angle. Now, these are on the internet. This is not something that I've photographed. You can look these up. If you look up Bora rings and go to images on your search engine, these pictures will come up. So I've not photoshopped this or muck around with it. The only thing I've done is put the red mark in to point out where the lays are. Again, if you look at things when it's small, you can see it more clearly. That is so obvious. So
wow, yep,
it's pretty cool. So this is from the other angle. So if we're here, I think the photograph is taken from this angle in the next shot. Okay, again, these are spherical spaces. You can see that this is obviously all this work, this woodwork is all around in a circle for a reason, because that these are portals, these are circular spaces. So I've marked this one. Now it reverberates in this one because you can see the line here. It's really quite clear. There's also two layers in the background, so I've marked them, and they're the ones that are feeding in. Now, Rory Duff speaks in his book about how most of these ley lines run in pairs. When they come into the portal space, it's just a singular space, but a lot of these lays run in pairs and one will be larger than the other. And that's important when you look at things like crop circles where you see ball lightning floating around a field, and you might have a crop circle appearing below the ball lightning. I believe the ball lightning is actually working along the channels of the ley lines that run together And the microwave energy coming from the ball lightning is what actually causes the crop circles. And there's so many studies that show that those the nodes of the crops are the parts that actually, where it folds, it's the strongest part of the plant. And the only way to do it is from heat from the inside. So microwave energy obviously heats up the particles on the inside of the plant. So I think that's the best explanation basically for crop circles. And again, if you look from a distance, you can see the circle. And this is lovely because you can see the way the trees have avoided it, that they're sort of growing in this weird, unusual sort of shape. Okay. Another
Beautiful.
one. So this one's also kind of obvious. So again, if you let your eyes go to focus, you can see the one in the center, there's one over here, and there's a smaller one also feeding in. So this one's more obvious if you look, again, the small tile, I've marked it.
Yeah.
Another one, I mean, there's so many of them and they've all got the same thing. So, and again, you can see here, you know, there's nothing really growing in this space, because that's actually a powerful lay coming in. I don't think this is the actual portal. I think this is just the largest lay coming in, or one of the larger lays coming in. The portal you probably wouldn't get to see unless you were standing way back from this space. It's probably quite a large one. Given the size of that lay, that's a big one. And this one, again, let your eyes go to focus. You can see it is so clear in the center there. And then there's several little lays feeding in. Again, they're not as obvious, the smaller ones. It's really interesting because you can see this line in the grass. Grass actually belies them quite well. And that surprised me when I was doing these studies, because I was looking at all these sacred sites like Stonehenge, and there is no tree growth in those areas. Nothing. So, you know, you can't pick it up as easily, but it does sort of show on the grass.
I've been to Stonehenge and it's
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was magical, as in the energy of that place. And I think if you remember how you just before how you said activation, that
Yeah.
was a big shift in my life where a lot of things changed. And yeah,
Wow.
and that's
Wow.
when I started actually taking music seriously after that experience, which is interesting.
Oh, that's incredible. Wow. Wow. Well, again, you know, I really believe that, well, I know that sound frequencies can heal, and vocalists are often healers. And I've told you that you're a healer. So your frequency, your healing modality is through your sound, through your music. That's in my opinion. I wanted to share this because I showed this technique to Dale. It's quite funny. I was talking to Dale about ley lines for ages. Like he would do his walk and talks and I'd say, hey, did you know that you were actually walking through past some ley lines there? And he'd be like, he was always gracious. Dale's always gracious. He never said anything to me like, oh, you're a kook, or you don't know what you're talking about. He did laugh about this in the Sky to Earth Academy because he said, like, I couldn't see what she was talking about. But then when he did the course, or no, I did the Sky to Earth, that's right, did the course afterwards. I did a presentation for Madeline and Dale on the Sky to Earth, and after that he could see them. And so he did a walk and talk and he shared, because there's this area in Bendigo, again, if you've got a lot of quartz in an area, that will also heighten the ley lines and make them more visible. Ley lines are also a lot more visible in areas where there's gold, and quartz and gold sort of grow together. So he could see one in this particular spot, which is quite spectacular. So I'll go backwards and forwards a little bit. Sorry that the tile's so small, but you can see it better when it's smaller. But then I'll just do the comparison so you can have a bit of a look. I mean, that is just stunning. That's really quite
Beautiful.
Really is beautiful. And again, it's a refraction of light. The light play is what belies them as well when the trees don't do it for you. And this is this was basically taken from a little video that Madeline actually found, Madeline Doherty from Sky to Earth, shared it with Dale, Dale shared it with me, and it blew my mind at the time because I was still very nervous about putting this out publicly because it, you know, people would question it. And again, you don't want to, after all the work that I've done to prove that my father and this satanic cult were doing these terrible things, I didn't want to discredit myself. This was like gold to me. So again, this is another Bora ring. And there's another portal in there. This is a really good example because, again, like one of the pictures I showed before, the trees are all growing in a very similar way. And gum trees grow all over the place, but this is very structured. They're avoiding something. So I did That's the comparison for people. Let your eyes go out of focus and you can see it. There's actually 2 large layers feeding into that one portal in that picture. And then I've just marked the way that the trees are avoiding the reverberations or the frequency as it reverberates out, and also as it travels through that space. Now this is interesting. So,
This blew my mind when you posted this. I was like, of course they would do this.
of course they would. So this is the Melbourne Cricket Ground in Melbourne in Australia. This is Taylor Swift. This is her recent concert. This is a ley line. This is the backdrop to I can't remember the particular song she was playing. Someone told me what it was, but there's the ley there. You can see it really clearly. And as it reverberates, it gets larger. So, and this is a mark tree. I mean, it's a classic mark tree. It's moving around the ley line. So that's what they do. They avoid the ley lines. It's front and center. So I've marked it. I'll go back and forwards a couple of times. So, you know, somebody shared something, and then Dale shared it on his Telegram, and then someone, Maddie, put this in the comments, and I don't know if it was Madeline Doherty. I think it might have been somebody else, because I don't see her calling herself Maddie. And she pointed this out. So it's like, thank you, Maddie, for sharing that, darling. And if I hadn't been in, and I don't go into Dale's Telegram chat very often, if I hadn't looked, I wouldn't have known.
And what's really interesting is that the nature of this type of concert, you know, where you think about worship, and when they, you know, every single one of these people are obsessed with this character, Taylor Swift, right? How this social engineering, whether it's Tavistock, CIA, whatever, how they mind control people so that they literally worship an idol, and like they go crazy. Like, so I saw some of the footage of people like, oh, you know, the whole screaming. Like Dale's actually talked about it with when the Beatles were first created by you know, social
Tavistock,
engineers.
yes.
Tavistock, yeah. So to create that sense of worship. And so when you've got a huge stadium of people doing that in a ley line, wow,
And
powerful
I just
stuff.
noticed too, darling, I hadn't noticed this. The ley line travels. This is literally the ley
Wow.
spot that they have marked through this. So it travels down the stage and she's within it.
Yeah,
So
shit, right.
all of that focus of energy is focused into the ley.
Mm-hmm.
And actually where she's standing probably is the portal space within the MCG.
Yeah.
So what happens there is no one should ever worship any other individual, any entity. There should be no worship. Worship is not a good thing. There should be a communication, an understanding of being kind to one another, being loving, doing right to each other, having integrity, but you should never adore one individual. And what's really interesting about this, we were talking before about the obsession with the occult. The Nazis were obsessed with the occult, absolutely obsessed with it. And they're obsessed with people who had a certain kind of eye color. I've talked about this in many interviews, central heterochromia. So, and full heterochromia, and a number of people in Hollywood who have full or central heterochromia. So either they have different colored eyes, one will be blue and one will be brown or whatever, or they'll have an eye color that has a different color around the pupil than the rest of the iris. The number of Hollywood celebrities, very, very well-known actors and actresses that have this is well outside the chances for this to occur. It's 1 in 200 Caucasians have this. So it's 1% of 1% of the population worldwide, according to all the statistics that my friend Doug McIntyre, my cousin, put together. So, you know, so this is just the Melbourne concert. This is the MCG. This is the MCG where this was taking place.
Wow.
It's a massive eye, even to the point where they've marked out the tear ducts with the trees. I mean, look at this. It's a big eye. Now, that's what happens.
Oh my God, yeah, it is. Holy shit, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So for
yeah.
those who are not conscious of the Illuminati and the obsession with the one eye, this is a representation of that. So
Can I
it
just
gets even more
quickly
interesting. Yeah,
interrupt you 1 second? When people think of Illuminati, right, they straight away think of it as a negative because they don't understand the word. It is a cult, but the word Illuminati, literally it means illumination. So to have knowledge. So they are mocking people that do not have this knowledge. So this is essentially what it is. It's like, ha ha, we know and you don't know. And they will show us in these ways. So there is actually this where people don't understand the word and they associate it as a negative. It's actually just knowledge.
And that's a really good point, Julia. Thank you. Illumination. So the ley lines are illuminated. There is a word, the word for grove in Latin is light. So where you'll see the leys is in groves of trees. There are so many correlations between light and so illumination. So, you know, they do very much focus on the light. So speaking of light,
yeah, this is the one I was looking for. I couldn't find it.
In Sydney. So again, it's exactly the same thing. They have got the ley line marked because it's going down the stage. And I've noticed this before. This time it's red. Again, she's got the orange dress on. So the orange, I think, is there. I was forced to wear an orange dress in a ritual as a child. The orange is an initiation into one part of the Freemasonic structure. And the orange also relates to the sacral chakra, the sexual chakra, harnessing sexual energy. So I know there's a lot of females in that audience, mostly females. And again, I'm not picking on anyone in particular. I know a lot of people love these things. This part of the stage, I would say, would be the portal space. This is the powerful ley line coming in.
Wow.
She's right in the center, right in that center. I'm surprised it's not circular, actually, quite frankly. It should be. This Accor Stadium in Sydney, that's what it looks like. This is a different stadium.
Yeah.
This is Accor Stadium. So again, it's not as much like an eye around it, but what is really interesting is you've got some markers for ancient Egyptian symbology. So we've got the ibis. There's an ancient Egyptian deity that has an ibis head, and we've also got a rising star motif with these striations going out like sun rays. That is also an Egyptian symbol.
Wow.
Olympic Aquatic Centre. So again, you've got a whole bunch of people going there to worship somebody because of their physical attributes, their capabilities with their physical body. Nothing spiritual about that. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with swimming. I'm just saying in these spaces, they will harness this energy that is focused on specific sort of, it's not spiritual. It's the lower chakras that they're focusing on. And it's a form of loosh. And this is really odd. This little thing over here is called Haslam's marker. It's a spiral. I don't know what it is, but it's very eye-like with the tear sort of marking there. So not sure what that is. I have to look into it a little bit more. And you've got, I mean, this whole area, it's all arenas. So this must be one massive portal in this space.
That's fascinating.
Very interesting.
And you know, when you've got that worship relationship, because everything is relationship, right? So you are creating a master slave dynamic and confirming that because you're acting it out. And like when you again with the law of correspondence as above so below, if because people don't know how powerful they are, right? Can you imagine like the power that is created from one concert from all those people? Like it's huge. So no wonder why they go to such extraordinary lengths, especially with the music industry, sports, to create these stars, these idols for people just to, it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Do you mind if I show the little video from Matt Roche and also the one from Ben?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, so this is amazing. So this was just shared with me and it just blew my mind and it was shared by someone who had also done my course. So I think that's right. So I'll just play it.
So if you guys notice, this is how you find energy spots. You find cactuses growing in spot, if you will, down. This is intense. And then if you look at the tree, you can see all the winding. This is how you know you're standing on top of a vortex or a very powerful energetic ley line. There might be water underneath here, might be gold, silver, materials. There's something spiraling underneath, which is causing everything else to spiral. And then create this massive growth, which if you look at how large this cactus is, it's just astounding. Look up here, we can see another spiral going on with the cactus, showing that we're on the vortex, and we're just 3 feet away from the other cactuses. And then we see tier 2, cactus, tree, cactus, all growing in the same spot out of the rocks. And this is how you know that you're in another high energy spot, because we can see it here. And if we pan over here, we can see the exact same thing on this side as well too.
So I really want to share that because,
if you guys-
sorry, I'll just go over to, how do I get rid of that? If I go back to, oh God, I'm lost now.
Top right hand corner, X.
Thank you. All right, so I've just got some stills of what he was showing there. So he's actually standing in a portal.
Yeah,
Sorry,
wow.
in a
Clear
large
as day.
Yeah, clear as cells. I just turned my sound down. So there, it's really obvious. There's actually a smaller one here. You can just see. I have marked it. So what the only thing he misses in this, he's got this so spot on, is that where he crosses over and shows in the other space, just closer to where we are, say where the person's standing, the portal's actually between the cactuses, these two places. So the ley line, big fat ley line, little ley line crossing into each other, into the portal space, and the actual portal space is here where this person's taking the photograph because it's empty and bare. And again, you will get plants growing within the lays at times, but they grow very strangely, and he's already pointed that out. And that's just a comparison. Again, when it's small, you can see it a little bit more clearly. This little one's really lovely. So from the other direction, again, you get them growing in there, but they'll grow strangely. They grow uncomfortably is probably the best way to describe it. And so you can see it again. And again, it's the way the light refracts. It makes it really obvious. So it's really interesting because I shared this with my friend Ben. Ben and I have been talking about ley lines for a little while now. And he said, you're not going to believe this. He's already organised to have a chat with this gentleman around the time that he organised to have an interview with me. So it's just, it's uncanny how these things just happen. I don't think Matt Roche has any idea who I am or has seen any of my stuff on ley lines. This is just serendipitous because he's seeing the same thing. Wow. And on that note, I just wanted to share, after I'd shared some of these things, especially with the Taylor Swift concerts with Ben, he put out this call. So I'll just share that now. Oh,
no sound.
No sound.
There's a little mute. You've muted, I think, next to the left there.
There we go. You're clever. All right, start again. Technology.
Good morning. Just sheltering from the rain here on aircraft carrier UK. I was sent a couple of pictures by a good friend and colleague, a lady called Rachel Vaughan, the bravest woman I know, SRA survivor, well, apart from my wife, obvious reasons. And it was a picture of Taylor Swift and her set at her gigs, the Eros series in Sydney. And it was a picture of the ley line, clear as day. And it struck Rachel, and it strikes me as very odd that Taylor Swift, new darling of the US Democrats, and I don't know, now a follower of someone who's not very nice, would put this imagery in her set. And it gets one thinking how deep this all goes, how truly deep the rabbit hole is, repetition of deep, and whether ley lines and stones and things of this nature are key to the battle. And the UK here, we have more stones, sarsen stones, things of this nature per square mile, any other country in the world, as far as I'm aware. Please do fact check me on that. So what's that about? How deep does this go? I hear rumours that there is a Q drop to do with ley lines and their significance, that it's mentioned in Revelation. So what's that about? I live in the west of England. We have a lot of them. So what do we need to know? What do we need to do? Are there tasks that need to be carried out? Is it a case of save the ley lines, save the world? What do you guys think? How deep does this go?
So I'll stop sharing now. So yeah, I wanted to share that from Ben because my reason for doing the course and trying to share this information and putting it out there in interviews and taking the risk of being, discredited is because I think this is extremely important. We've got to take these energy centers and ley lines back from those who've been mistreating them and us through them for millennia. And it literally is millennia long that this sort of stuff's been going on. Old Testament's in a perfect example, and so is the pagan activities that were happening back in, you know, the Roman era. So it's got to stop. It's got to stop, and now is the time for it.
Wow. That's
Mm.
awesome. And actually, can I also, just to finish up, show you, I came across, again, through a comments. I've actually come across her before, but I didn't realize what she was doing until now. A musician by the name of Daya Dover. She has traveled the world, I think, over 40 countries to record music in ley lines.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would, if that's okay with you, to
I'd
share
love to.
some of her music, especially one in South Australia, the Flinders Lane Mountains.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, that's where the womb is of the
Well,
sacral chakra. That's massive. Vulpina pound. Wow.
yeah, so let's have a quick listen, and this is her website. So can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so she travels, she's got a YouTube channel, Daya Dover, and so over 7 years, over 44 locations on Earth's energy lines across the planet. She's created an album with music, basically recording in those areas and using her voice, and it's incredible. So people check it out. I would actually like to talk to her myself, because this is, you know, she's been doing this for ages, so she's been aware of it.
Wow.
If you look at all these, so this is the one, this is the thumbnail for the one in the Flinders Ranges in Australia, the one number 1. So let's have a listen.
Interesting. There's some portal pictures in there. Like,
Oh yeah,
she may be pointing out the portals.
there and there.
Yeah.
Oh, and there, Dragons Crossing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I've got shivers through my whole body. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll play the one from the Flinders
Beautiful.
Ranges. I'll just stop it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many shivers going through my body. I was listening to that. Is that light language, or is that a different language?
I don't know what language it is.
Wow.
It's the rhythm though is a similar from the Cuban realm of rhythms. There's not, I won't go into it now, but there's a similar feel of that, which is interesting why she chose that rhythm. But yeah, I could go into analyzing her music, but I would actually like to chat to her about it, how she creates intuitively this music, especially in Australia and other places around the world. But yeah, like looking, yeah, I didn't want to play the whole thing because it's almost 6 minutes, but people can have a listen to it. And yeah, planetaryGridProject.com.
Beautiful. I mean, see, that's something perfectly aligned to the frequency that you would want to play in a ley line. If you're not someone who feels comfortable singing, you would take out something like that and play it.
Mm.
That is obviously incredibly uplifting. I haven't heard all of the tracks, but that one in particular, that's something that I would take if I didn't feel comfortable singing or playing music or whatever.
Yeah, and I still am on the lookout for a device that can measure numerically or in some sort of energetical capacity the before and after of performing or playing music in a ley line to see what effects, just to for a sake of, you know, that logical mind of proof to have that. But
Yeah.
you could, like, I know that I wouldn't need that for me because I would feel it, right? But just for a sake of a project or just to yeah, so I might actually ask her that. I'm going to reach out to her. That's it, doing it.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Anyway, yeah, cool. So I think we've covered a lot today. Was there anything else, I guess, that you wanted to sort of finish up on? What thing there? Oh
Well,
yeah, where can people find your course? Because you've got one happening in March
yes.
and May, I think.
Yeah. So I've got so the March course is full, and I taught the first session of it yesterday. I've got one coming up in May and July, and it depends, you know, if there's still call for it, I'll keep going. I believe, I have a sense that we're going to get a lot of people who are going to be going out into the ley lines, possibly all in large groups as well. That's not really my forte, to bring people into large groups and to sort of take them out into a ley line. That's why I'm teaching people to do it, you know, in their own way. Find a ley line in your local area and go and put in beautiful energy, loving, harmonious energy, and with the intent of clearing those lays from all the negative energy that is then put into them. So, but I have a sense, and my guides have pointed out to me, that there are going to be much larger groups going into the very larger areas with the really important spaces like, you know, the heart chakra, the different chakras of the earth en masse, and doing energy work. I can see that's going to happen up until probably about 2026, when it's really going to take off. So I suspect I'll probably need to keep doing the course between now and then. So if people want to find me, my website is www.sixthscience, so number 6 science.com. So you can see everything that I do there. You can enroll there as well. And yeah, just, you know, hopefully with this information, people can go out and find some ley lines themselves.
Yeah. Amazing. You know, I'm really proud of what you've been able to do and because I know that doing this work, you would have had to overcome some fears yourself. And this is just proof to, you know, what is so powerful in overcoming that shadow work within ourselves and doing the work. Like, everyone's got something to give, and we all come from different parts of the world, and everyone's got something to give. Everyone's got a story. And I think that you're a perfect example of someone that's come so far, you know, and I really admire you.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I admire you too, because I also know of some things that you've overcome, and I'm very proud of you for that.
Yeah.
And I think we all have something in the background that we have to overcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The programming not to speak about this was intense, but I'm very stubborn, and so I fought against it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go clean my eyes now because I'm getting teary.
Oh, darling. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll chat soon again. There's going to be lots of good things, I think, continuing on with your work, and more people jump on. And yeah, it's just so exciting because this is going to be, as you said, a big movement with people just doing the work energetically. And but it also requires people have to do their own shadow work, because you want to be very careful about what you're putting into these ley lines, right? You can't, well, you can do whatever you want. Everyone's got free will, but like, that's why it's so important to get to know who you are on a core deep level. Work on the bad stuff, work on the good stuff, come into balance within yourself, you know, and then sort of give useful, really good intent and into the ley lines. And yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
We only need a certain number of people to do it, because when you talk about these really dark souls that do this work, there's only a small number of them that actually do the really horrific stuff in there. Yes, they're doing the loose energy stuff in the big stadiums, but that is different to the ritual work that they do. It is a form of ritual, but it's not a sacrificial ritual. If we have got a certain number of people, and we outnumber them so many to one, we can get, if we can get a certain critical number of people out there putting this positive, loving intent in, we can undo anything that they're trying to do. It just takes this tiny little number of us that are here to overcome that. And that's what gives me so much hope too. This is how we win the energetic war.
Mhm.
There is this war going on. It is in Revelation. Someone sent me the screen grabs from Revelations that the ley lines are part of this. It's the last fight. We can win without, we don't have to have any fighting. We don't have to have any wars. We need to do this energetically, and we can do it peacefully, and we can do it incredibly quickly. That's what
Amazing.
the point of this is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll also add your links to this interview so people can sort of just click on it and jump on your course. And yeah, cool. We'll leave it there.
Thanks, sweetheart.
Thanks, Rachel.